This is Doug Schrift with Senior Fitness Radio. Today, my guest is Richard Bowie. Richard is from the Sunshine Coast of Queensland, and I had to call Richard and get him on the show because he sent me an email, and he's just a fun, fascinating human being with a lot of experience. And we want to talk about just a lot of experiences he's had in his life, including some physical problems he's had, and just how he exercises and how he deals with growing old and exercising and fitness. Richard, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, sir.
So tell us about your who you are and what your life has led up to until this point.
Well, I'm 73, I think, 72. I'm a post-war baby. That'll do.
After World War II, right?
After World War II.
Right.
And my father was a policeman in my early years. He was a big fella. He was about 300 pounds. That's about... when I was growing up, chemist scales, the pharmacists had a set of scales for people to put their money in and weigh themselves, and they only went up to 20 stone. And he was too heavy for those, so he used to weigh himself on the railway scales. Now, that sort of puts me into context in terms of propensity towards sizing up. Me and my sisters all have issues with weight, that you look at food and you put on weight. So that's one impetus for me to exercise a lot, to not to go down that road of getting so much weight on that it's just almost impossible to get off. So that's one issue. The second issue is that I had a huge cerebral hemorrhage, bleed on the brain, in 2001, and I was in a coma for I think 3 or 4 weeks, and all the kids were called in to say goodbye to Dad because he probably won't make it, and all of that dramatic stuff.
Wow.
Of which I was totally unaware, I might say, because I was unconscious. And for some reason, I think a number of reasons, I've been able to come through that with brain damage, but with a great desire to be well and fit, so that when I die, I'm going to be an extremely fit person. All right?
That's excellent.
I want to hit it full on. So that's sort of where all of that's coming from. I was in a wheelchair for a while, and then we moved up here. I lived in the national capital, Canberra, which is a little bit like DC. It's territory excised out of another state. And when I had all my dramas, we moved up here because this is where I have family. And I was in a wheelchair then. And my wife used to say, "Get out of bed, we're going to practice walking today." And so she'd drag me out of bed, and I'd hobble down to the next door letterbox and back. And she might push me into that for a couple of weeks, and then we'd tackle the next letterbox down. And just bit by bit, she got me working. She's like a regimental sergeant major.
Wow.
You know, get out of bed.
Sounds very fortunate.
Oh yes. I'm most grateful for my wife and her persistence, because there are some predictable side issues with people who have strokes and cerebral hemorrhages and things like that, and that
Absolutely.
is that many of them end up single because their partner really just can't cope with the stress. And so it's all credit to Joyce, who has been able to get herself through that and pull me along as well.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing because as a therapist, stroke victims or anybody with a brain injury, they're often different people after the injury. And they're
Well, I've been writing articles for the Brain Damage Association of Queensland for their journal. They rang up one day and asked me would I write my story, and it took me about a month to actually get half a page down. But bit by bit I got into the swing, and I wrote quite a lot of articles for them. And so I found out quite a bit about, from feedback from them and other articles in the journals. I forgot why we're talking about this. I'm sorry. What did you say?
Basically, I think it was 2001 that you had that hemorrhage, and so that's a good 16 years ago. So you've had kind of 16 years of recovery so far?
Yeah, well, I was sort of fairly immobile for a long while, and very confused, and still dribbling. And then just bit by bit, I think there are a number of factors that have got me through it. The first one is Joyce's tough love. That sort of has given me the strength or stability to work. I happen to think that grace is an important factor, but not grace that goes zap, there you're okay. It seems to me that, do you mind me talking about religious things?
No, absolutely. Go right ahead.
All right.
I say God bless you all the time.
Thank you. In Australia, it's not really acceptable to start talking about God things. But anyway, it seems to me that grace is not so much God going, zap, there you're okay, but rather being the ordering principle or the coordinating principle of a whole number of factors. One of which is Joyce. Another one is the field of neuro-linguistic programming, which is a mind technology. It's all about how our language cannot not have an effect. It must have an effect. I mean, I can manipulate you right now and say, don't think of a dog.
And then I think of a dog.
You think of a dog. Yeah. That's right. And I say, well, don't do that.
I have to.
Right? So, yeah, you have to, because if I say don't think of a dog, somehow you've got to make a representation of dog and then negate it in some way. No, not that, or the no smoking sign or Ghostbusters sign or something. So I think neuro-linguistic programming has given me technology to work on, especially self-talk, because my experience is my self-talk is the most damaging of any factor in life. You really beat up on yourself, not you, but it's a standard thing that we human beings tend to beat up on ourselves in our head by talking to ourselves or having a voice that talks to us. And neuro-linguistic programming has given me tools to be able to deal with that in a very effective way. And incidentally, Milton Erickson is a name that you may be familiar with because he spent his working years in Phoenix.
Oh.
And he was the man who took hypnosis off the stage and into the clinic. And I've been quite heavily influenced by Milton Erickson's writings and his understanding of hypnosis. So it's just the power of words that when I'm walking along, I took note this morning about what's going on. And when I'm crossing a road and standing on a sort of safety island in the middle of it while there's traffic going to and fro like this, and waiting for a gap in the traffic, it's very easy to say, oh gosh, I hope I don't fall over, or I hope all these sorts of things. Well, why on earth would you talk about falling over? That plants the idea in the head, and so the chances are, over you go.
Right.
So I make a point of saying that I stand straight and strong, well balanced, and taking notice of what's happening to the traffic coming this way and what's happening to the traffic going that way, and just only make things positive rather than negative.
Wow. Yeah, that's
And,
great.
I mean, there's a big field about positive thinking, but
Yep.
it never really tells you the technology behind it. You know, a lot of the power of positive, is it Vincent Peale or something? Power of positive thinking. And, it really doesn't tell you how to do it or what's going on in your brain to be able to do it. So that sort of reframing of my self-chatter has been an incredibly important factor. As soon as I say I can't do this, then I start questioning myself, well, what is it that's stopping me from doing it? Right? And then the conversation with myself just goes on. So it seems to me that one of those factors in coming to where I'm at has been a persistence in dealing with the negative self-talk that goes on inside me.
So this has been this kind of positive reinforcement, the neuro-linguistic programming has been pretty important in rehabilitating your brain, right? To get back into fitness, to get back into moving forward, a positive direction in life. It kind of reminds me of back in the late 60s, probably early 70s, I was really shy, so my mother took me to a hypnotist, and he turned me on to Maxwell Maltz, Psychocybernetics, one of the first kind of books that said your brain is a computer, and just feed it stuff and it's going to move you forward and do things. So that's really great. So like the first year after your brain injury, kind of describe your mood. How did you get? You have a wonderful partner. So how did you get back into physical fitness and just getting your body back in shape after that, horrible
my official paperwork says prone to falling.
Fall risk, we call that in physical therapy.
Right. And that's been a real issue for me. I mean, I've ended up in hospital a couple of times just from falling. Hang on, I've just got to... You'll have to excuse these moments where I momentarily forget what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I'll try to keep you on track.
Yes, please do.
Yeah.
Falling. The paperwork says falling, so I figured that if I was going to do anything about it, I've got a choice for this. Well, just accept it. Well, I'm going to be a faller, and I'll just fall all the time. One day I'll fall and I'll never get up. Or on the other hand, I can say, right, well, I'm prone to falling. What is it that I can do that's going to assist me to be prone to standing straight and still and steady? Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I thought, well, getting back to karate, I was a black belt in Shotokan karate. And since my stroke, whenever I decided to do something about it, the first thing was I couldn't remember the patterns. And the second thing is I couldn't balance easily enough to even get a decent punch in. And karate is a lot of one-legged stuff. Of course, you're forever kicking.
Right.
So I thought, well, I need to, perhaps if I just do basic steps of trying to get back in and do a little bit, if I do a little bit several times a day, and that's where that started. And since then, a little bit several times a day, I might add a couple of push-ups to that. So I started on 2 push-ups, and I'd do that for a couple of weeks. And then I'd do 3 push-ups, and then I'd do 10, 12. And what I've noticed as an older man is that when I stop, my physique and ability diminishes very quickly. I don't know if that's a standard aging thing.
It's pretty quickly, yes, it's absolutely.
Super quickly. So
Yep.
if I stop working out, say on push-ups, if I stop doing push-ups for I go travelling for a week or something like that. By the time I'm ready to start up again, I've got to go back to scratch and go, well, let's do one several times today, and let's do two the next day several times, and just gradually build it up. But I don't mind going back to scratch as long as I do go back to scratch. It's very easy just to shrug it off.
Right. Yeah, I did a video a couple weeks ago about I compared your exercise and a leaky bucket. So I said, so I took a bucket and I drilled a hole in it. And I said, this glass of water is all the benefits you get from exercising. You know, your pull-ups and your sit-ups. It's all in this glass, and I poured it in the bucket. And it started leaking out slowly. But I said, this is how your body is. You just have to keep putting the benefits of exercise in the top of that.
Keep topping it up.
Yeah, because it's going to leak out. And studies have shown that it's pretty quick. I think for college kids, if you put them in bed for 2 weeks, it's about 96 hours. They'll start deteriorating. So it's pretty quick. So when you're older, you know, I'm in my 60s, you're in your 70s.
Goes quick.
It's 24 hours. You know, it's pretty quick. So
yeah, absolutely.
So you're saying that your first year you just started with really small steps after your stroke. You know, one or two push-ups.
I wish I had had your book, your e-book, back then.
Right.
I think I would have come a lot further, a lot more quickly.
Well,
because the beauty about that book, as I understand it, is the ease of the exercises for the beginner, or not ease in the sense that it's sloppy or slack, but ease like it doesn't demand a lot of equipment, doesn't demand huge energy output. It's just getting this and doing it, like standing at the back of a chair and bit of gentle leg raising and things like that. That's just so important. I wish I had that book back then.
Yeah, and I always emphasize that when you're older, you got to start slow, and a lot of people will start too fast, and they'll become discouraged because, oh my gosh, I did 10 push-ups and my arms are just I'm in pain for like I know you're in pain for 2 weeks. So you know, when you're older, just start slow.
That's right. Yeah. Just down to the first letterbox for a week.
So let's say 6 months after your injury, where were you physically? Were you falling down once a week, or were you exercising? What were you doing about 6 months after?
I'd come out of a wheelchair by then, and I was walking with a stick. And then for probably 6 more months, I'd always have a stick to steady me. It wasn't until we live pretty close to the beach here. It's about 5 blocks away. And Joyce would say, we'll go and walk on the beach this morning. Well, you could think of how absurd having a walking stick walking on sand is. I mean, it's just...
it goes right through.
That's right, stupidity in the extreme. So what did I prefer? Did I prefer walking on solid ground with a stick, or did I prefer walking on the sand? And I threw the stick away in the end. Sand's a safe thing to fall on.
Right.
We've got a parachute club here, and they parachute. Their landing place is the end of the beach, probably about almost a mile along the beach. And we'd go and sit there, and I'd look up like this to see them, and I'd just fall back. So you could lie down on the beach and just enjoy watching the parachutes coming down. You wouldn't be able to fall anywhere.
Right.
It's great. So, but also the physical thing of walking through soft sand, it has an effect on the movement of the foot and of the legs, and in fact all the way through. And,
I think it's quite a thing. I think it's actually some kind of, somebody has a whole book on just running with bare feet, you know, and I think sand and natural environments Just taking your shoes off, then you can really feel the ground, and it really does an amazing job in improving your balance, just because you don't have the shoes to kind of absorb things. You just have your feet, right in direct contact with the ground.
And being at the beach is also a good thing, because you're familiar with the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung.
Yes, well, I haven't read his books, but certainly.
He's been his work has been a major influence on me through the years, and his understanding is that is deep into symbolism. So water is a symbol of the unconscious life, and land is a symbol of the conscious life. And walking along the beach, walking along where the water joins the sand, is walking along that area between conscious and unconscious reality. And his thing was about making more of the unconscious more readily available to the conscious life. It's a very deeply psychological healing place, being on the beach, and people will report time and time again how healing the beach is, but they're never really sure what it is about it. It might be the sound of the water or the sun or something, but Jung's understanding is that it's a whole thing about the movement between unconscious and conscious life, approach to life, which is therapeutic in itself.
Right, yeah. So what type of self-talk do you do just for your fitness, like your current fitness, like for the past week? How do you talk to yourself to get you motivated? I always joke to my wife. I said, I got to go to the gym. I don't want to go, but I know it's good for me. Like Jack LaLanne, if you know Jack LaLanne, he said, famously said, I hate exercise, but I love the results. which is really kind of how I feel. It's like, I work all day. I come home and say, I got to go to the gym, because it's you got to do it. How do you do it? How do you do that self-talk at your age, just to keep yourself motivated and exercising, which you have to, right?
The morning walk of about an hour and a quarter is an important time for me it's an important time to pray, it's an important time to think through issues, it's an important time to make plans, it's an important time for me to write articles, which I do a lot of. And I know that I'm better off when I've done it, when I haven't done it. It's great for depression. It's great for giving tools or giving mood to not beating yourself up in that psychological self-violence. I'm not sure what it is that motivates me. I worked hard to create a mindset of the benefits of it, and I'm pretty competitive with myself. Are you familiar with the phone app Map My Walk?
I do. Actually, I have that. I think it's Map My Walk, Map My Hike.
Yeah.
I think they have a couple of them, right?
Yeah, there's a run one. And I use Map My Walk every day.
Wow.
And one of the early purposes for that was that when I got lost, which I used to a lot. Absolutely. And but now it just tells me, basically, I know if I'm really hiking along. Hiking along for me is about just early 10 minutes, 10 seconds, 20 seconds per kilometre. And a comfortable walk is about 10:50 a kilometre. And if I'm really feeling lazy, instead of just staying in bed, I might do it at 11 or 12 k's a kilometre, 12 minutes a kilometre. So I can evaluate that in terms of where I'm at physically, like if I'm tired or what have you. If I'm stressed and feeling down, then I don't mind pushing it along a bit, and so I find that very motivating for me. I like to get it on the figures, and I like to send the figures on to my children just to let them know that I'm working on some important stuff here.
Wow, that sounds great. That's we're kind of similar in that I live in the Phoenix area here, and it's fairly flat. So I've used that program, Map My Walk, and it's nice because you get a little map at the end of your walk.
That's right.
Of where you've gone, and then you can show your spouse and all that stuff about where have I been. And my wife likes me to text her every 30 minutes to make sure I'm not laying on the street somewhere.
Yeah.
So I have to send her a picture of here I am by the Shell station. Here I am. I'm going by McDonald's. I'm going to grab a shake or something like that. Just because of the heat, and you're walking alone. So I do a 30-minute update during my walks. So it's probably similar to yours. Because I'm gone for several hours. I could be gone for 4 hours on my walk.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah, I tend not to be very adventurous in terms of going to new places. I like the fact that I'm walking in a very familiar place. I know where the footpaths are uneven, and I know where I can get across the road safely and things like that. So I tend to stick to the same thing.
Yeah.
It's very predictable.
Yeah. So tell me about your physical routine. Do you go to a gym? Do you do things at home? Do you use weights? How are you rehabilitating yourself, on a continual basis?
Some years ago, I joined a nearby gym, 24-hour gym, and I was there for a couple of years, and it really wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. I wasn't there to bulk up, and I wasn't there for a visible six-pack. I was just there for flexibility and a certain amount of aerobic work and things like this, just fairly gentle things. And it wasn't doing it, and I was paying money for it not doing it. So I decided, well, I'll just focus more on the walking than going on to the gym. But I have some little routines that I do here several times a day. I'll do, I told you, a number of push-ups, set number of push-ups several times a day. And I'll vary it. So sometimes I'm using a wide stance, which my understanding is more for the muscles across here, and sometimes a narrow stance, which is more for the shoulders. I don't do full sit-ups. I do crunches just up to my knee. But I do there's some Pilates stuff that comes into that, like legs in and out like this, or lying on the side and legs up, and leg circles and things like that, all of which work on the core. And so I spend quite a lot of time doing that. In the morning, sometime, usually after my walk, mid-morning. And then in the evening when I'm going to bed, I'll do all of these things beside my bed. So
you do mostly walking for your legs. You do kind of sit-ups for your core, and then you do basically push-ups, trying to keep your shoulders and upper body in shape.
Yeah, and bridging.
And bridging.
Oh,
that's
for core.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't do full sit-ups. I'll just do sort of up. I'll bend my knees and go up to my knees. But I'll do leg-ins and sort of. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, kind of like a partial sit-up.
Yeah, partial sit-up.
Right. Yeah.
That's a good way because I haven't got the strength to do a full sit-up.
Right.
And I could work towards it, but from some of the information I've read, sit-ups aren't all that hot for your back anyway. So.
Yeah, I in sixth grade I had the sit-up record, with the this was back in the 60s. We did the old-fashioned sit-ups where somebody would hold your legs and your legs would be straight, and you would just come up from the ground, and you touch your knees, and you go all the way back. Those kind of the old-fashioned sit-ups. Boy, I remember those. Yeah, I don't think they really do those anymore or recommend them.
No, they don't.
Now they do more crunches, or you can even come from the other end and just lift your legs up and kind of do a reverse, almost like a
reverse crunch. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you remember in the 50s or 60s there was a program came out of the Canadian Air Force called the 5BX plan?
No. What's that about?
Oh, it's sort of calisthenics, but it's very carefully graded. It's up there somewhere. I just don't know where it is. Yeah.
Something for your upper body and lower body.
Well, it involves star jumps, and
right.
You might do week one. You might do a set of 3 sets of 2 star jumps, and just very graduated. That's tautologist. Very gently graduated to be able to be be okay for anybody who wants to jump into it. But I haven't really been focused on doing it because I think I've got enough going at the moment.
Right. So what would you, going through all this stroke and the hemorrhage, what kind of advice would you give somebody who's maybe 6 months out, who's had a stroke? They're sitting at home, they're not exercising, they've done their rehab already, probably been through physical therapy and had some home therapy maybe. Now they're kind of they're watching TV a lot, not as active. What kind of advice would you give to somebody like that who really needs to exercise, really needs to do something?
Your book is a good start because it does sedentary stuff. Hear that, everybody?
Hey.
Yeah. I'd encourage them to do some sedentary stuff, like just simply sitting in the chair and picking your knees up. I mean, that's got to be a good start for somebody who's not used to it.
Right. Yeah.
Or also doing little circles with your legs, sitting in the chair and you've got your legs out and do little circles. You can do all sorts of arm things while you're sedentary.
Right.
I'd start them where your book starts, just on the simple things that are accessible to them, and they don't have to be a gym jock, they don't have to have weights and everything else. They can just use body weight. I use body weight all the time. I've got weights here, but I just don't use them.
Yeah, our bodies are pretty heavy.
I was demotivated in using my weights when they all went rusty from the sea air. So.
You pick up a rusty pieces of metal. Eh?
Yeah. But I'll walk past the rail on the patio and just do push-ups like this off the rail.
Wow.
Just little bits. I'm a contrary sort of person. So if I'm walking along and I want to move up if I'm walking along the side of the road and there's the gutter and the footpath and a grass verge, and I want to change from the road to the footpath, have the choice of going up one of those gradual inclined driveways that you get onto your own driveway, or step up the gutter onto the footpath. Well, it seems to me that step up to the gutter is the harder one. That's the one I'll do.
Right.
And I aim for the harder, the more difficult each time. And it can get me into trouble sometimes, but by and large it serves me. But that doesn't come from a sensible place. That comes from just a pig-headed competitive place.
Right. Yeah.
So I'll take the difficult. I'll tell you if it's a matter of do I cross here or do I walk a bit further and cross down there? Well, I'll walk a bit further and cross down there. As soon as I find myself saying, will I do this or that, then I do that.
Right, because you're looking to improve. And there's actually in Australia, I think it's called Otago. It's a kind of a balance program they've developed down there.
Otago sounds New Zealand.
Is it New Zealand? Maybe. Yeah.
I don't know. It sounds like a New Zealand word.
Yeah, it's a balance program, and with really wonderful results, and it's very simple. I think you need a physical therapist to come to your house and show you how to do it, but essentially it's kind of what you were saying is, they said instead of just brushing your teeth, stand on one leg while you're brushing your teeth. If you're bringing your groceries into the house, walk sideways. Little things like that that you can do that it's not really exercise, but it really does help you, progress and keep your balance.
It's like walking backwards. That was an exercise I used to do on the beach.
Oh, yeah.
And that just gave me a new perspective, a different perspective.
Yeah, actually walking backwards is good. Yeah, I teach that a lot, and when I do senior fitness classes, I always have seniors walk backwards because we're really not used to it. It's like, what? No, you want me to walk backwards? I said, yes. You can hold on to a wall, and you can look back if you want, but walking backwards is difficult, but I think it's just a wonderful thing to help improve your balance.
If you can do it in a secure environment, it's great.
Right, yeah. Don't do it in your garage with, all the metal around. And stuff around. I always say, go to Kmart within the towel area, or I don't know if you have Kmarts down there or Walmarts.
But, yeah, we do, yeah.
Get all the fluffy towels on either side of you and do your balance exercises in the fluffy area of the store with all the towels in case you fall against something. Yeah, you can do a lot. So what are you doing for your balance right now, like in the past week or two? How do you keep from getting too unbalanced when you're in the street or when you're walking on the beach?
Do you know what a Bosu ball is?
Oh yeah, it's like a half ball, right?
Platform on a yeah.
Boy, that's hard. That's high level.
Say again?
That's a high level exercise you're doing if you're doing Bosu ball. Yeah.
Yeah, and I sort of try and work on one leg. So I can't do a squat on one leg, but I can just bend my one leg and up and around. Sometimes I'll stand on it and just move so it wobbles, but you see that's core stuff, isn't it?
Right.
Working on the stability that comes from the core.
Right. So you're kind of standing on one leg with a surface that's not really stable, is what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Again, I mean, I've got a small one of those here, which is not a soft underball. It's more of a hard plastic thing, but I always do it near my bed. It's the same reason of the towels that you were just talking about. That's why I smirked then. Yeah. But I do that. But when I do some karate stuff, that's usually on one leg.
Right.
It's hard to kick when you've got both legs on the floor.
Right. Yeah. A lot of that martial art type stuff. There's a lot of one-legged standing in that, and which is really pretty good for balance. Just standing on one leg and moving your body around too.
Well, I've come a long way on that because it was not so many years ago that it was practically impossible for me to stand on one leg for more than a second or two.
Wow.
And now I just stand and kick, try and stand and then just lift my knee up while I'm standing. And then push my foot out as far as I can to try and straighten my leg while I'm still standing. Now, I need that. I can't do it statically and get my foot right out, but if I do it what's the word, where dynamically, I suppose, if I make it dynamic and throw my foot out, excuse me, I seem to be able to stand much longer on one leg while I'm letting this joint, my shin, letting my shin sort of swing up and down from a raised knee. That has an effect. I guess that has an effect on glutes apart from balance and core.
Right.
So working on your glutes there.
Yeah. That sounds
I tell
great.
you what it's all of this has given me an impulse to do. I'll hold it up when Can you read that?
Let's see, I have to go around my camera here. Master Fitness Instructor. Wow, is that yours?
No, I borrowed it from a friend. But I'm working through the book. Just my problem, of course, is memory.
Right.
How do I remember things? And so I'm just working through it, because quite apart from what it can teach me, if sometime down the track I do a qualification in fitness training, I'll have some background.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm forever exploring, and I told you that I'd give you some feedback about your book, and I haven't really done that. I still will, but basically,
it'll be another show maybe.
Basically, what I think about it is, I forgot what I'm going to say. It's not where I'm at. From that point of view, it's not useful to me. It can be as I age further, or if I remember we were talking about those setbacks when you stop for a week and then you find you back at scratch.
Right.
It'd be very helpful at times like that. Most of all, I think, for beginners.
Yeah, that's basically what I wrote it for. Was for, people in their 70s, could be 80s, who really never exercised. Just start slow. Just start doing some leg work. Start doing some arm work. Doing some stretching. Doing some balance. I have all the 4 areas in there. So, it's just very important to start light and just work your way up. And within a month or two, you can totally outgrow the fitness program, unless you just want to start lifting heavier weights or doing more time. But it's a really good intro to getting back into fitness.
The superannuation industry in Australia has a ditty that goes when they're advertising on television. Basically, the ditty says, "From little things, big things grow."
Right.
And I always think of that when I'm talking to somebody about beginning exercise. That you don't have to sort of go to the gym and think you're going to have a six-pack next week. Just do something small. Do it incrementally.
Right. Mm-hmm, absolutely. You can even just go to the gym and just drive by it first. Oh, there's the gym.
Or walk past it.
Or walk past it, yes. And then the next day you can go in and just kind of walk around and say, well, I'm inside the gym. And then the next day you can say, well, I'll just do a couple little stretches over here in the corner. The important thing is just to build up that habit of doing something, which is a habit. We have 2 cars, so I work at a hospital about 5 miles away, and my daughter says, well, I'd like to drive the car today. So I said, all right, I'll take my bike to work. So I started taking my bike to work here and there, and I said, I actually really like riding my bike to work. And I wouldn't have done it if my daughter didn't say, can I borrow the car? So believe it or not, now all I do is ride my bike to work. If the car will be home, and I'll ride my bike to work. Because I kind of did it and I kind of liked it, and I just started the habit, and it takes a lot longer. You have to leave early, you have to get your biking clothes on. When you get to the your work, you got to take your biking clothes off and, take a sponge bath if it's hot. And then, so you have to like dress twice or more like that. But once you get into the habit of doing something, it's that's how you exercise. That's how Jack LaLanne did it. Jack LaLanne he exercised for 2 hours, from what I understand, since he was like 16, from 5 to 7. That's when he exercised every day of his life, until he was 96 years old. It was his kind of routine doing that. So, yeah. How about in terms of rehab, some of the challenges you've had? What has been the biggest challenge you've had in your rehab from your stroke, from your brain injury? Kind of what was the biggest thing you had to get through, psychological or physical?
Psychological, I guess the biggest thing for me is that my field of awareness, I can be aware when I'm thinking I should be aware, but if I relax, most of life just goes by, and I don't even know it's happening, and that's a real pity, because this should be a really rich time of life for me, and I miss it. I just, like conversations and seeing people and things like that. I might meet somebody when I'm walking, but it doesn't stay in my awareness long. So that's a challenge. That that's to do with memory loss as well. That memory is something that puts our experience into context, and when there's no memory of it, just scrambles. So that'd be the most important thing, that I can't remember things. In terms of rehab, my life up to when this happened, apart from karate, was fairly sedentary, couch potato stuff. So it's still there. I cheerfully stay in bed in the morning instead of getting up and walking, but I can't afford to. I want to be well, so I'm going to do everything I possibly can to be as well as I can and as fit as I can. My doctor told me the other day, or a couple of weeks ago, he said, "You're one of the fittest 70-year-olds I know." And I said, well, that's okay, because the 70-year-olds you see are there because they're sick in some way and they need to see you.
Right.
So, and I mean, I go for blood pressure check and prescriptions for medication. That's all. I don't get sick these days. I don't. So I'm sorry, I'm rabbiting on. The question was,
kind of your biggest challenge you've had, physically since your stroke, to get over something that was a fairly difficult time.
I was disqualified from driving.
Oh, ouch.
So for the last 15, 16 years, I haven't driven a car.
Wow, that's big.
Somebody pulled me up a couple of years ago now and said, so I was walking and they were driving, they pulled the car over and leaned over through the window and said, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Wherever I drive, I see you walking. Why do you walk so much?" And without thinking, just coming deep from the unconscious, I said, "I walk because I can." There's heaps of people who just can't. And even ambulatory people, there's a huge number of people who are still unable to walk very much of a distance. They might have circulation problems or something like this, and they can walk a little bit, they can walk around their kitchen, but that's about all. But I can walk miles and miles and miles.
Wow.
So that question, why do I walk so far, helped enthuse me, but it also helped me to see it as an important challenge that without my knowing it, there are people around me who are challenged by this behaviour, and they're challenged to do something for themselves. And that's I mean, what else could anybody want? If you can challenge somebody to be better and they'll take steps to do it, I mean, that's your field.
And you challenge them just by your actions. You don't challenge them verbally. It's just that here I am walking.
Yeah.
You're blessed that you have your legs, and you don't have circulatory problems in your legs or disabling arthritis, which a lot of people have. So, but just walking, just the example of walking to people who really should be walking.
Yeah. And that can happen without you even knowing it.
Right.
And that's got to be good.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. My my story with physical therapy is that your people will come to therapy and you see them drive up, and they'll be looking for the disabled parking space, the handicap space, and then they come in and I say, okay, go do 15 minutes on the treadmill. They saved 30 feet maybe by parking closer to the physical therapy door, but they get in and they literally have to walk a mile. So it's like in their heads they don't really get it that, well, I just saved 30 feet, but now I got to walk a mile when I get into the physical therapy place. It's kind of funny. I always enjoy.
Reminds me of when I was driving. I go visiting a hospital. Car parks are hard to find. I'd park in the doctor's place.
Ouch.
Well, it doesn't say medical doctor on the signage. It just says parking for doctors. So I think, well, I'm a doctor. I can go and park there.
There you go.
Yeah. My dad used to say, no hide, no Christmas box.
Wow, nice. That's funny. Wow. So you mentioned your wife is a giant inspiration. Were there any other people who inspired you during your rehab process that kind of brought you out of maybe some thinking that wasn't positive to really get you going?
No. Apart from maybe one of my daughters who sent me a little motivational card with a note on the back, Dad, never give up.
Wow.
Keep going.
Wow.
And that was important coming from one of my kids.
Absolutely.
But no, maybe writing for the Brain Damage Journal, that was an important motivation, but it wasn't. I can't think of anybody who really enthused me. Just
right. Basically
it came from in here.
Well, that's the importance of family and friends. Well, for you, basically family.
Yeah.
That's very fortunate to have family like that. Yeah.
And I'm not going to let these things beat me. I mean, I told you I was stubborn. I think of it as persistent, but my wife thinks it's stubbornness. But putting my pants on, there are times when I'm really giddy and it's very difficult. But most of the time, I'll try and put my pants on while I'm standing up. Put your jocks on while you're standing up, or pull your shorts on while you're standing up. Because, I mean, I can sit down on a bed and do it, put this leg in, put that leg in, and but I refuse to do that, so I keep doing these things standing up. It's just little things like that.
Right.
Again, that's that pig-headedness. So that motivates me. It motivates me to think, I'm not going to let this beat me. But again, you see, that's pig-headedness.
Right. Well, you're doing stuff to challenge yourself instead of taking the kind of not the easy way, but the easy way.
The easy way.
You kind of do you kind of do the harder thing. You're putting your pants on when you're standing up is very difficult, but it works on your balance. It is an exercise, and it will help you. It will help your balance. When you're sitting down, you don't get all the input that you get when you're standing up. You're standing on one leg, you're reaching down, kind of grabbing your pants, and totally different thing. So yeah, that's excellent.
There's one thing we haven't talked about, and that's diet. We've noticed. Pardon?
You're not a McDonald's person? No.
Absolutely, definitely not. Since we've moved here, we've both seen how necessary it is to eat sensible meals, not too much, just a sensible meal and simple, unprocessed foods and things like that. So breakfast is oats for both of us. Lunch is usually I might have a wrap. Do you know what I mean? It's like a...
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of what's that Mexican food, sort of like a wrap.
Like a burrito?
Burrito, that's the one.
Mm-hmm.
And then dinner we might have we might have a sausage and broccoli and potato and pumpkin mash or something like that. Just very simple. And that suits us, but we've noticed that it's helping us physically.
Absolutely.
Because Joyce comes from Papua New Guinea, and she grew up just eating vegetables. That was it. If her father or uncle had been successful fishing, well, then there might be a little bit of protein, or maybe somebody went hunting and killed a pig or something like that. There'd be some protein, but by and large it was just veggies. And so we eat a lot of them.
Very healthy, yeah. Yeah, diet's very important, and we tend to eat smaller meals as we get older, so you have to be even more picky about what you eat, because you don't eat as much as you did when you were younger.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's very important.
Alcohol's been a big change for me. Back in the day, a bottle of red wine with dinner, would one be enough?
Wow.
But these days, I just can't be bothered drinking.
Right.
Which is a pity, because most of my friends and family do. So,
yep.
So I might have a small glass with them, but in Australian slang, I'm what's called a one-pot screamer these days.
Wow, I'm not familiar with that.
One glass.
Wow.
A pot is a glass of ale.
Oh, I see. Nice.
So one-pot screamer means that, one pot and you're dancing on the table.
Wow. Oh, I see. That'd probably be me too. All right. So, just got a couple minutes left. In terms of advice, so what kind of advice would you give somebody in your situation? I think we kind of went over it a little bit, but kind of what piece of motivational advice would you give somebody who's really not exercising? They're getting old. They're they're searching on the internet. They probably found our website, and they're kind of looking at this. They're not quite there yet. They don't really have the follow through to start exercising. It's like, well, it's nice, but I'm kind of old. I do a little gardening. What would your advice be to get somebody to push them over the edge, maybe just to start a walking program like you, or to start some kind of physical program? What would you say to that person?
I'd probably speak in metaphors, because many of our experiences in life are about things getting better as they get older. They mature, and cheese maturing into a delicious taste, and wine aging until it's just like mother's milk. I would probably use metaphors that are more appropriate to them. I mean, they work for me, but to them, to illustrate that getting old doesn't necessarily mean things have to diminish. Getting old means that if we want to be able to share our experiences with our grandchildren, then we can work in such a way as to be better and better and better. I've really resented people putting limiting things on me. The worst thing these days is for you to say to me, "Yeah, I can't do that." Or, if you were talking to me, "You can't do that." I'll say, "Bugger you, you watch." And I'm at him, right? I would encourage people to be very resistant about accepting other people's limiting conditions on what we can do and what we can't do. Unless, you're not going to invite somebody with high blood pressure to do some high intensity exercise. But, within boundaries, then, the world's your oyster.
Right. Don't hike in the mountains when 115 degrees. That wouldn't be a good.
No. But just enjoy walking along the beach as the tide comes in.
Wow.
Children have an important motivating influence on me. I don't know. I imagine that's pretty universal.
Oh, yeah. They're very flexible. They can do a lot of stuff we can't.
I sure can. But just having them around and keeping active with them around. I mean, we notice that when the ankle biters are around here, we have a lot of fun, but we're glad when they go because we need to lie down and just recuperate.
I need a break.
Yeah, that's fine. There's that sense of sharpening our desire to be around with them. And to be around with them means I need to be a little bit more active.
Right. It's true. Yeah, you want to be there for your grandkids. You really want to be a person who can do things, and you don't want them to have a memory of, grandma, grandpa, kind of actually like I do, bent over and in a wheelchair, and not really doing very much. So you like to have somebody who's a little bit more active, and even for an hour or two during the day where you could, relate to your grandkids. Very good point.
So, did I send you an article on karate?
I don't think so. Maybe you can send that off to me.
There's a photograph on it of one of my daughters is a Muay Thai instructor, and she goes over to Thailand once a year with her gym to do in-service training. And you're familiar with Muay Thai? It's kickboxing, cage fighting.
Oh my gosh, that's tough.
It is tough. But last trip she took one of my grandsons over, and he's started working with her in the gym, and so he took her to Thailand to motivate him. So I don't know why I'm saying that, but there you go.
Well, you're saying it because you gotta exercise with the kids and keep up with things. But
that's right.
But we've been talking for over an hour, so this was really great, and I really appreciate getting in touch with you, and thanks for emailing me and getting in touch. But it's great to get a story from somebody who's been through some tough physical stuff, especially with your brain, because that is it's very tricky when you start messing with your brain. You have your memory problems, you have balance problems, you have a lot of challenges, and it sounds like you've done a really wonderful job in attacking your memory problems, your physical problems, and stabilized yourself into an independent, positive, functioning senior.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the name Norman Doidge?
No. Yeah.
He's a neuropsychiatrist in the States, and he in his investigations he discovered that the brain isn't hardwired the way you and I were taught it was, and that he wrote a book called The Brain That Changes Itself. And so he wrote that under certain conditions your brain can build new networks, and I think it was him who came up with the name neuroplasticity.
Wow.
Now, in terms of exercising and age, neuroplasticity is vital,
right?
Because your brain is always able to learn more things and do differently.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm sorry, I might have pushed you off track there, but I meant to say that earlier and I forgot.
Yeah, your brain is actually more plastic than we thought, especially when you get older. Different parts can take over after strokes, you can you can adapt to your environment continually. It's been shown that people after strokes improve even 20 years after the strokes. It's a lot slower. You make most of your improvement within the first year, but certainly, you can improve 20 years after your stroke. You can still be improving.
That's what I say. That's the limiting thing, isn't it? The main healing will happen over the first 12 months, but then it'll slow down. I've wanted it to speed up, right? So
throw that one out.
Instead of listening to the doctors saying I can't, I'll listen to me saying I can, and I will.
Absolutely. It's kind of like, what's that highest mountain in the world? Mount Everest, right? And they said, you can't go up there without oxygen. It's physiologically, we've written out the charts, and it's physiologically impossible for a human to go that high in the air without oxygen. And then what happened? People started doing it, and they said, well, okay, I guess you can.
Let's rewrite the book.
I know. It's not easy to go up there without oxygen, but, it's possible. Well, Rick, thanks so much for joining us here, and you're going to be a blessing and a positive force for all these seniors listening to you, to get motivated and to, just keep that positive, forward-thinking attitude. I know they've done studies, and they with 100-year-old people, and the two commonalities that most 100 people have are humor, and they always look forward. So if you're a humorous person and you look forward, you're going to really do well.
That's the nature of hope. Looking forward to what's possible.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks a lot, and
well, thank you, sir, for inviting me. I appreciate that. I've had a real buzz this morning.
Yeah, so let's keep in touch.
That'd be great. I'll send you some of those articles I was talking about.
Okay.
If I send them double, just think, oh well, here he goes again. He's forgotten.
Got to go like this.
Press the delete button and get rid of it.
All right. Thanks, Rick.
Okay. Blessings on you. Bye bye now.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.